guys, this is SD Traveler, and today we are going to be doing the second part of the third part series of Colombia. Today in the podcast, I'm going to be talking about the hostels we stayed at, the money that we spent, how much we spent, and kind of a little bit of a breakdown of where our money went, the language, what I thought about it, the difficulty in travel, the things we experienced getting around the country itself, what we ran into, some problems, taxis versus buses, and so on. But first, I wanted to thank all of the people that have donated to me over the past couple of months. You guys have been amazing. It really has been super helpful in terms of getting everything ready for when I leave in August and making sure I still have food on the table. And I now have a puppy, so it's been super helpful to have all of you guys supporting me in everything that I do. I also want to thank all of the people that have bought my art pieces in the past couple of months as well. Because of you guys, my art gallery is down to 7 pieces being left for sale, which is absolutely amazing. All of these pieces have been made by yours truly. They've been made with love and inspiration, and I have been trying super hard to get down my numbers. Not only because I've been trying to downsize, but also because I really need to say goodbye to them. So you guys have all been super helpful. Again, we do have 7 pieces that are still for sale in my art gallery. So go to www.sttraveler.org. I will leave the link in the description below so that you guys can go ahead and click that and get straight to the pieces that I have left. Every person that donates, every person that purchases a piece is super helpful, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. First, I want to touch base on the hostels that we stayed at in Colombia. We stayed at 3 hostels in total. We stayed in one that was just inside Bogota, and it was actually a pretty nice hostel. It had laundry, showers, it had separate rooms, so it was like a co-ed, but not. They basically just separated us between male versus female. They also had little suites, so if you were a couple or if you just didn't want to be separated, then you could do a suite together. They had a kitchen that provided breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you wanted to go ahead and get some of that, and they also had coffee. It was a really nice little location. You could pretty much walk to anywhere in the city, so that was actually really nice to be able to do that and to kind of see all the sights and not have to go very far or take taxis. The second hostel we stayed at was in Salento. It was a really nice hostel. It was basically in all of the greenery, and it was just on the outskirts of a really small city there. So it was nice to kind of have that to get away from all of the busy life. I got to run when I was there, which was awesome. It was about like a 2-minute walk to get to the center of town. It definitely was one of those places that's not super touristy. So if you're looking for something just kind of out of the box, but still beautiful, I would go to Salento. The last hostel that we stayed at was actually, it was okay. I didn't think it was awesome, but I thought that it did us justice. And it was definitely one of those places that I was a little worried about, but it ended up turning out okay. This is in Medellin. Medellin was awesome, but the hostel that we stayed at was definitely one of those places that I just felt like there could have been a little bit more. I couldn't run there because in Medellin they were worried about girls getting targeted, so you couldn't like have your belly showing. You couldn't like have expensive things on, obviously. You had to be with a group of people. You couldn't really go by yourself. So I actually had to go to a gym while I was in Medellin to be able to keep up with my fitness. And that was probably one of those things that I didn't like. But other than that, all the hostels we stayed at were all pretty well kept. They were all reasonably priced. They were between $7 to $12 a night, which is way cheaper than here in the United States. And so it was definitely one of those experiences that I'm glad that I had. I've never stayed in a hostel before, so it was definitely kind of a culture shock to have to experience that in another country. But I had people with me that were experienced and knew what they were doing, so I think that helped quite a bit when it came to adjusting. So next we're going to talk about money. So the money that we ended up spending, was probably on average between $200 to $500 depending on the person. One of my friends is probably closer to the 200, 300 range just because she didn't really buy a lot of souvenirs. I was closer to the $500 range. I bought souvenirs for pretty much everybody, including myself. I've always been a souvenir person. So it was one of those things where it depended on like what you wanted to spend. In terms of food, it was a lot cheaper than I thought it was going to be. It was probably between $7 to $15 a meal, depending on like what you were getting and where you were going. We ended up doing a lot of like the breakfasts at the hostels, and that ended up being a little bit cheaper than going out to get food. So that was actually pretty nice. In terms of like spending money on other things, I would say the one thing that really got us was like the taxis. The taxis were pretty expensive. They do pesos over there, so when you get the money, it says like 10 mil, but that's in pesos, so it's not $10 million, it's 10 million pesos. So that ends up being like $5, $10, something like that in US currency. Their exchange rate was bizarre. So it was quite a shock to get used to the exchange rate over there and to kind of understand like what was going on while we were there. And taxis just ended up being between like 10 million pesos to 60 million pesos, depending on the taxi driver, like where we were and how far we were going. They don't really do meters there, so you could get you could end up in a little bit of a scandal if you're not aware of like what's going on. Which brings me to like the language. If you don't know the language, you definitely are going to be in some trouble, because I promise you, not very many people over there know how to speak English or speak English well. So trying to get someone to understand you and you trying to understand them was actually like one of the biggest problems I think we had. Just because we had to use our Google Translate, and they didn't really want to touch the phones. They didn't really want to like try to help us understand what was going on. But luckily, one of our friends knew enough Spanish to be able to kind of decipher what was happening. So it was definitely one of those things where like we were struggling, but somehow we made it through, if that makes sense. It was definitely not my favorite part of the trip, and it was really frustrating not understanding what was happening, and then my friends were getting frustrated because like I didn't understand, and they were having to repeat some things if I didn't understand. Even though I got asked to go on the trip, I definitely was frustrated with the fact that like I could not get what was happening most of the time, and then I would ask my friends, and then they would be like, oh, okay, I guess I'll tell you. And that was probably like the biggest thing that was like not okay to me. But you know, in the long run, we got through it somehow. We made sure it worked out. It was just definitely not my favorite part of the trip. So definitely try to learn some Spanish. If you know someone who does know Spanish, try to learn from them before you go. Try to understand the basics, what people are asking, and really you should be okay. But if you know no Spanish, please don't go. Like, try to understand some of it, because not knowing any Spanish, I would have definitely gotten lost or kidnapped. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. It was super stressful, like not understanding anything, and like it was a big culture shock to try and understand what was going on, even though my friends blatantly didn't want to try and help me get it. And I mean, they knew this when we left, so this wasn't anything new. It was a holy shit, like this isn't happening. So then it comes to travel. Like I said before, the biggest cost we had was taxis. And the taxis were pretty strange. They were small, they were compact, they didn't have a lot of power, they were driving stick shift up like these giant ass hills. So we were crammed into these taxis, trying to go up these hills, trying to like get through the day and trying to make things work. And we got screwed a couple of times because of this, because of not only the cost, but because of what we were having to experience in the taxis themselves. And it was just so not my favorite. The buses were definitely easier just because you would pay for either all through the day or all through the night, and they would get you wherever you needed to go. And it was easy, it was simple, there was nothing complicated about it at all. So I would say if you can do buses, to do the buses instead. It will help you a lot more. And I mean, if you're trying to cram a lot of things into one, try to take buses for like a night cruise into wherever you're going. It'll definitely be way more useful. All right, guys. Well, that's really it. In the last podcast, we will be talking about the coronavirus, the things we saw, what we experienced while we were over there, and the people that we met and like what they were going through, and just kind of touch base and let you guys know like what we were seeing, the first signs of when it came to travel, because we got home and 3 days later, like, the borders closed. So we were very close to not being able to get home at all. So that will be the next and final podcast of this series for Colombia. So stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to like, comment, follow along on all of our adventures. I'm excited that I will be in the U.S. for 2 months traveling with my dog, Lila. And there's so many wonderful things to come. So make sure to keep an eye out for those posts on my blog, www.sttraveler.org. And make sure to keep an eye out for those YouTube videos. There will be a lot more coming your way soon. Thank you guys so much. See you in the next one.